Hey guys, what's up? My name's Brianne, and today we are at Poema Studios with the wonderful Lynette.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. Excited to be here. So I'm Lynette. I am a wedding planner in Southern California for Blissful Moments is my company. So yeah, super excited to be here.
Can you tell me a little bit of backstory about Blissful Moments?
So I kind of started my own business way back. I was working with an event planner as an assistant for her. We were doing a variety of different special events, weddings, bridal showers, dinner parties, holiday parties. We would do kind of everything. So I worked as an assistant to her part-time while I was doing visual merchandising for Nordstrom. I worked with them for 10 years. And then I had my first baby, and I didn't want to be away from them for so long. So I decided I wanted to pursue my passion of doing event planning, which was what I was most interested in and what I went to school for. And I left Nordstrom after 10 years, and I kickstarted this journey on my own, and I really wanted to pursue weddings because that's what I was most passionate about and felt most comfortable with. And I just really loved the option to really take somebody's vision and their most special day of their life and really bring it to life for them. So that's where I kind of pursued that, and I started my own business. Aside from working for an event planner, I branched out and started my own business and started doing Blissful Moments, and that's how it kind of curated. Yeah.
Cool. And you have a whole team now, right? It's not just you.
Yeah. So we've kind of grown. I have Caitlin, who is my business partner. And so she's also a lead planner on our team. And then we each have our own assistants. So we have 3 different assistants that work on our team. We have also staff members that work for special events that do like bartending, that do like service, that sort of thing. So yeah, so we have a very large team, which is really exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you've grown that all in. So your first child, you said, so he's like 6 now, right?
Yeah, so he's 6. So we started in 2019 was when like we officially started with Blissful Moments and got like the business license and got all those things going. So in 2019, and then obviously 2020 happened and the pandemic, and that was interesting, but we were able to still keep pushing through. And then, so we've just been kind of rocking and rolling since then. Yeah, now we're here.
So starting off with are you mainly an event planner or an event coordinator? Because they're different.
So I do both. So I do event coordination. I do mostly event coordination for like smaller events. And then I'll do event planning or wedding planning for weddings. I do event planning for special events. So like I just did one on Saturday, and that was just like a summer soiree for one of my clients. And it was only like 20 people, but I planned the whole thing out with her, and we kind of mapped it all out. I handled all the vendors that were involved. I handled the chef that was involved. So it was definitely a very planned out process. So I kind of do a variety of both, with both special events and with weddings. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And can you tell me the difference between the two?
So obviously weddings are a lot longer of a process. So you're saying the difference between event planning and coordinating, right?
Yeah, planning and coordinating.
Yeah. So the difference would be like coordination, you're coming in at the very tail end of things, and you're kind of like being the go-to person, the point of contact for all the vendors, for the venue. You're that kind of director of things, especially for the day of portion. That's a huge piece of it as well. But you're kind of coming in at the very tail end and wrapping up those pieces versus the planning process. You're really planning along the entire process of the planning. So from start to finish. Mm-hmm. So you're planning everything out with everyone or the people involved. So the either bride and groom or the client, you're planning everything out. So you're going over all of the details of like the tablescape, what's going to be on there, planning all those details out, the vision, bringing that to life, and really bringing in your expertise versus coordination. You're just kind of coming in at the tail end. Everything's already been planned out, and you're kind of just taking care of those final details.
Mm-hmm. What do you prefer? What's more fun for you?
I actually like both. I feel like I get a good combination of both throughout each year. I never try to exceed a certain amount of planning clients that I have. Like if I'm planning, especially their wedding, like I want to make sure I'm giving all of my clients my all and making sure that I'm giving them 110%. So I try not to exceed a certain number when it comes to planning, but with coordination, so I don't just do day of coordination. So I do what's called month of coordination.
Okay.
So with that, I come in 6 weeks prior to their event or with their wedding. So in that time frame, I'm going over all final details, everything that they have planned out so far, and we're just kind of fine tuning all those final things. I go over a final checkoff list of what still needs to get done, what needs to be handled, and I take care of all of those final details, and I kind of alleviate that stress off of them because those final weeks leading up to any event or a wedding, those are the most stressful. That's when it's like it's getting down to the nitty gritty. You got to really make sure that everything's well-rounded, everything's equipped together. So that's where I kind of come in and alleviate that stress off of the client and really just make sure that I'm helping them fine-tune those details and make sure that we're set and ready to go for the day of. Yeah.
So when a client comes to you for planning, you're doing the whole thing. But when a client comes to you and they're only booking you for like the final 6 weeks or for the month of planning, what exactly have they done or what do you like them to have done prior?
Usually they have everything planned out. Usually it's like the final timeline we need to fine tune or get that situated. So I'll create a custom timeline for them. Usually it's like your final RSVPs are coming in at that time frame. So that's when you're sending in like your final head count to the venue or for catering, or you're sending in your final quantities for like rentals, that sort of thing. So that's where I'm fine tuning all of those things. Or maybe we're getting like signage taken care of for like seating chart or welcome sign or name tags for the tables. That's where we come in and we kind of take care of those items. Or maybe it's getting like your details done for, your welcome table or like little things that you're taking care of in those final weeks. But for the most part, once I come on board the 6 weeks out, they have everything for the most part planned out already. And then that's where I'm just coming in at that tail end and kind of wrap everything up and make sure everything's set and ready to go.
Okay. So what type of couples would you recommend planning to, and what type of couples would you recommend coordinating?
So I feel like if you are a type A person and you like to have control and you are very detail oriented and you want to plan this all out, it makes you feel better at the end of every day. Those are the brides that I feel like they usually have me come in at the very end. I do have some of those brides or clients that will have me still come in during the planning process because they just want that partner to just kind of reassure them throughout the entire process, or they want an experienced person in the industry to come in and just kind of reassure them like, okay, this is what you do. This is the order you do things, because they do want to follow that checkoff list. So that's where I'll kind of have some of both. But majority of them, if they're kind of doing everything on their own, then they'll have me come in for that month of coordination versus somebody, a lot of people don't get married all the time. So this is their first go around. Exactly. This is their first go around. So they don't necessarily know what to do. And that's where they want a planner to come in and be alongside them and kind of help them and guide them throughout the entire planning process. Or I have some couples that come in and they really just want their lives are too busy or their work schedule is just too busy and they just want me to come in and plan everything for them. They tell me what they want and I make it happen, that sort of thing. So it's kind of a combination of both. I wouldn't say I just have like one type for this and one type for that. It's kind of
There's
variety.
Some gray area.
Yeah, there's definitely some gray area for sure. Yeah.
But I could definitely see, lives are busy.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So that's where I would think personally where a planner would be your point person.
Yep. We're making sure that all your T's are crossed, all your I's are dotted, and everything's good to go. And we're doing everything in the order that it should be taken care of. And again, we're just that second set of eyes and making sure and reassuring the client that everything's taken care of. Everything's going to be good to go. Yeah.
So say a couple just got engaged. You said doing things in proper order. What would you say is the order of events that should take place from when they get engaged?
I always say, like, when you first get engaged, you need to talk with your significant other and talk about what you want. Okay, what do you want in a wedding? What do you want in your guest count? Some people don't want a huge wedding. Some people do want a huge wedding. Some people want that in between. So talk about like all the things that you each want and talk about what that looks like, and then talk about your budget. I think before you reach out to any venue or a wedding planner that you should talk about your budget. It's so important because you need to know what you can afford or what you're willing to pay out.
Yeah.
Weddings are very expensive. So you need to know like what you want to pay and where do you have help? Are your parents on each side paying, or do you just have one parent from one side paying? What does that look like? And what does that look like for the two of you? And are you paying out of pocket? That sort of thing. So I think those things should be talked about before you even discuss a venue or discuss having a wedding planner. I think that's where you should start. It just makes your life a little bit easier and a little less stress on you in terms of the planning process, because there's so much that goes into it. There's so many details, and talk about those things and make sure that you have a clear understanding of what each other wants.
Like baseline expectations.
Yep. Yeah. I have some grooms that they're just like, whatever she wants, she can have whatever she wants. And then the bride's just doing everything. But then I have some couples where the groom definitely heavily weighs in, and he has his input and he wants certain things, and the bride allows that to happen. And so that's where it's more of like a collaboration, and it's like, okay, have we talked about those things? What do you want? What do you want? And that's where we talk about those things. But I think if couples do that before they even introduce a venue or introduce a planner or even a coordinator for that matter, before introducing that, they should have an idea of what they want.
Yeah, I would totally agree. Because as soon as you introduce the venue, that's when you start looking at the dates.
Yeah.
And then once you get that, then you're trying to find all of your other vendors. But if you realize you've spent too much on the venue, then, allotting whatever else to everything else is just going to be that much more challenging.
And that's where, like, I would never, say I came in as a planner, I would never want to, show a venue to a couple if it wasn't along the style that they want. Do they want like a beach wedding? Do they want more mountainous, or do they want like a garden? Do they want, like more of a vineyard, or what do they want? Like, that's where you want to talk about those things and really get a feel. And that's where you got to they have to bounce it off of each other.
Yeah. So it feels like after we've set baseline expectations, then you would say look into the venue and the planner if you want a planner, right?
Yeah.
And then what would come next?
From there, then you start getting into based off of what your venue offers in terms of like catering. From there, then you would want to start looking into like catering options, and then you'd want to start branching out to your vendors. So I always say that like venue first, catering second, and then from there you want to go into photo, video, and then you want to branch out to like DJ, florist. So you want to branch out into those, and then it will kind of trickle down from there. But it's kind of like a little checkoff list of what vendors need to get booked after you secure that date with your venue. It's what vendors do you need to get booked in the order. Yeah.
I wouldn't expect catering to be so far in advance.
Catering, usually, like a lot of venues, they have like an either exclusive caterer that they work with, or they have an in-house caterer. So usually once you book your venue, you kind of have an idea of like, okay, this is who our caterer is going to be. There are some venues still out there that they allow you to bring in any outside caterer, so you have the option to do that. So with that case, yes, you do have a little bit more leeway, but I still think it's top priority to get taken care of. Yeah. Just a lot of like catering is booking so far in advance, just like vendors are too.
Yeah.
Catering is definitely booking far in advance. Yeah.
I had no idea. So what would you say? We had kind of the list. What would you say the timeline might look like? So when would you recommend booking the photo video, and then booking like DJ florist, and then everything trickling down from there?
Like I would say like as soon as you get your date, get started right away with your vendors. Especially like I feel like photo and video for sure has booked out like so far in advance. And you could probably even speak to that too. Like I feel like it books out so far in advance, because not only do photographers and videographers have the wedding day that they're shooting, but they have engagement shoots, they have maternity shoots, all these different things that they're shooting. So they're booked up. So I feel like getting started immediately on photo, video for sure. Getting started with those is really important. And just getting those booked out like at least 10 months in advance, if not before that. Like I have a couple of clients that just booked with me and their wedding is next year. So we have a full year, but I'm like, we need to get on the photo and video. Like let's get them locked in now. Just because I've found in the industry that a lot of photographers and videographers are booking so far out.
Yeah. Now I was just curious what your perspective was on that, because that's kind of what we would say too, is like book us as far in advance as you can, because people are booking us a year out already. Yeah. And then the day gets taken and it's like we personally are booked, but we could send someone from our team. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. And I feel like from a planner perspective, like we like to recommend, vendors that we work with all the time, like vendors that I would put my name behind and my business name behind and stand behind. And we have I have an extensive list of different photographers, videographers, DJs, florists, signage people, bakers, all these different vendors that I have. But I definitely have my ones that I like to recommend all the time because I want to work with people that I like to work with too. So, and I know their capacity of the clients that they're booking and stuff like that. So that's where I'm like, okay, if you want to book these great photographers or videographers or florists or DJs, then you need to start booking them right away. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of value in working with the similar team that you're used to. Yeah. Because there are times when people come in who you're unfamiliar with and then things could go wrong.
We run into that all the time. I just had that happen. So yes, definitely happens all the time.
What's been your experience working? Because that's how we met originally, was we worked on an event, and back then we weren't on your list of people who you
I think I found you guys on Instagram.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I really liked your work, and I just kind of followed you guys for a while, and then I had a bride, and I recommended you guys because all my photographers and videographers were not available, and I think I hired you guys for videography.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it just kind of kick-started from there.
Yeah. The day went really well, and we jived, and it was really easy to work with you, especially on, so one thing that I love personally is order and making sure that things run smoothly on the day. So I personally will always have the timeline available to me without having to dig through a bunch of stuff because I always want to try to keep things on time, even when the planner is not available. So at the beginning of the day. And one thing that I really noticed about you was you always were on that timeline. It was always on point, and it always looks so professional when you send it in your emails and things like that. Oh, yeah. It's always, it's my favorite when I get one of Lynette's.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear.
All of the information is on there, all of the addresses.
Yes. Those are important.
Yeah. So can you tell me a little bit more about your process with crafting the timelines?
Yeah, so I try to just have it as detail-oriented as possible. There's so much that goes on in the day of portion, from the moment the girls start getting ready in the morning to the very end of the night when we're cleaning everything up, and then all special moments that take place in between. It's so much that's going on, and there's so many vendors involved. There's so many elements that are happening. Everything's it's a roller coaster. So I try to just make the timeline as detailed as possible. So when I hop on a call with a client for their timeline, I start from the very beginning. So, okay, what time are you starting hair and makeup? Okay, we're starting at 7 a.m. So we get started on that. Okay, where are we getting ready? What is their expectation of the getting ready process? What does that look like to them? What do they want from that? Especially from a photographer or videographer. What are they expecting to be captured? And then that also factors in on the timing. So how many hours do you have for your videographer and photographer? How many hours do we have set aside for them, or have they contracted you in for? So I just really look at all of those details, and I really just kind of break it all up. And then once it's kind of go time for things to start, and once we're on site, and photographers are on site, videographers are on site, florists, all the vendors, everybody's on site. I usually just make sure to touch base. I find communication is key. I just try to like communicate really well with all of my vendors. Like I said, I want to work with people that want to work with me, and we're here to do a job together, all of us. Yes, our jobs all look differently, but we're all here for the same goal, is to make the stage just magical for the bride and groom. So that's where I just try to overly communicate with my vendors, just making sure that everybody's on the same page. I want to make sure that I'm looping everybody in, making sure that everybody feels good. I would never start something to happen unless all my vendors were on the same page. So I cue everybody in, making sure DJ is ready to go to announce or start with music, making sure photo, they're ready to go. I'm always like giving thumbs up. That's like my cue, is like thumbs up.
Because we're usually across the room from each other and you can't hear.
Or like my assistant and I, we do wear a radio together. So like I'll send my assistant over and then I'm on one end and then like I'm communicating with them and then they're letting the vendor know if it's too far for me to give a thumbs up or whatever it is. So I just try to over communicate. I find that's key. And then, obviously not every wedding is going to like run to a T. I mean, I have had some that run pretty on schedule and I'm very happy with that. I'm, great. That's great. But not every wedding is going to run exactly on the minute to what I have exactly on paper. But that's where I really just look at it like, okay, like maybe we were 10 minutes behind on the ceremony because we were waiting for guests to get there. And then that's where I'll say, okay, where can we pick up this time? But I communicate with my vendor. So I'm collaborating with like the DJ, the photographer, videographer. I'm communicating with everybody like, okay, where can we pick up this time? And just making sure, again, that we're all on the same page because, again, we're all here to do the same job. And and I want to work with my vendors, not against them. So I just find over communication.
Yeah. And I think that's where having people that you jive really well with comes into play for sure. Being flexible. Yeah. And,
people that know my style of working or I know their style of working or that's where I do like to recommend vendors that I like to work with, even if it's a client that I am just doing month of coordination, so I'm not coming in until that tail end. Even if that is the case, I tell all my clients, if you need a vendor recommendation, please let me know. I'll send you all the vendor recommendations that I can. So that's where I still will give referrals, even if I'm not doing the planning process. So that's where that does come into play too.
Yeah. Totally. So you said with timelines, usually it starts with makeup. You're doing it chronologically and then see where makeup artists will end and then go from there.
Yep. Yeah. Start when they're starting to get ready. Then when the guys need to meet up with the groom, when they're starting to get into their suits, when the girls need to get into their dresses, bridesmaids, and then when the bride needs to get into her dress, and then when we're starting photos. I mean, I always encourage any of my couples, like, let's get as many photos taken care of beforehand as possible. I feel like photographers appreciate that. So I try to encourage that. So I will recommend let's get as many photos taken ahead of time as possible. And then
by ahead of time, you mean before ceremony.
Yep. So pre-ceremony, whether they're doing a first look or not. So if they're not doing a first look, let's get bridal party separate. So groom with groomsmen, bride with bridesmaids, and then any family that we can. So maybe like bride and her parents, and then groom and his parents. And then after the ceremony, then we're doing together photos. So all bridal party together, all family together, and then bride and groom can kind of go off on their romantics.
Yeah.
So that's kind of usually how I'll map it out. And then I just kind of encourage. Now I will have some couples that they just want to they have a vision in their head and they're like, no, this is the way I want to do things. And I'm like, okay, that's not my wedding. It's your wedding. We're going to do it exactly how you want to do it. And I'll just give suggestions based off of my experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to do it. Doing things before ceremony always helps at the tail end, because what ends up happening is they get married, the ceremony happens, and then immediately after, as a photographer and as videographers, we're chasing the sun at the end of the day. In the summer, it helps a little bit because it goes a little farther out, 8 p.m. is when the sun sets. But those like perfect, you said romantics, those are the pictures and videos of the couple that are going to be the stars of the day.
Oh, yeah.
And so the fact that, that's super helpful for us that you put so much weight on that time, too, to make sure that everything happens in order, and then we're able to do that together with the couple.
And I always try to like check with my photographers and videographers. I say I always, with the timeline, I create it, I send it to the client, have them look at it if they're good. Then I send it to my key vendors. So my key vendors are photography, videography, hair and makeup. I'll send it to them first, just to kind of make sure I've allotted them enough timing for their portion of the day and all that like you need to capture, all that hair and makeup needs to take care of with all the people they have to do hair and makeup for. I'll check with them first, make sure I've allotted them enough timing. And then from there, then if all looks good, then I'll send it out to all other vendors. Yeah. But I always check with those 3 vendors first. Again, because I want to make sure that you guys feel good in terms of like the allotted time for you. You know what I mean? So I want to make sure that you feel good. And I have a good idea. Obviously, I do timelines all the time and I do weddings all the time. Yeah. So I have a general idea of how long it takes to do, you know, a first look with the bridesmaids of the bride in her dress. And so I have an idea of how long that takes. So I kind of just base it off that. But then I always just do a follow-up checkup with that key vendor. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That is something I've noticed with you specifically too, is that we'll do a phone call or a FaceTime or something with the couple. Do you do that with all of the vendors?
Not all. I'll usually do it like photographer, videography. I'll do it with them. Sometimes with the florist, just depending on like how involved in the planning process I am. And then DJ, usually DJ, as long as they're a good DJ and like they know what to do, and usually it's a DJ that I'm standing and putting my name behind, and I know their style. But I feel like especially with photo and video, I feel like, I don't know, that's what you take home with you after your wedding. And that's what I tell all my couples. Like, you want to vibe well with your photographer. You want to mesh well with your videographer. And you want to make sure it's a good fit. And you want to also like their style of shooting as well, because that's what you take home with you after the wedding. And that's what you have forever. So I just feel like a good connection there is really key. And I feel like a good connection with a planner or coordinator is so important too. Because you want to mesh well with them. And I feel like photography, videography, and your planner or coordinator, that's who spends the most time with you the day of the wedding.
It's true.
They're with you the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where I feel like those 3 vendors, for sure, you need to mesh well with them. Yeah.
How would you recommend a couple chooses their planner or coordinator? Because you want to be able to mesh with them really well.
I'd say like off of the consultation. Like you want to, I don't know, kind of off of their energy too. Like I feel like you want to have that consultation. You want to feel and get off that consultation, like feeling and knowing like, wow, they're really going to take care of everything. And wow, I'm going to be totally set. I'm not going to have to worry about a thing. You have to feel that and know that. And I guess it's like a feeling. I don't know how else to explain it. I feel like it's a feeling. And that's like what a lot of my past clients have told me and bride and grooms have told me, is that like, yeah, like we talked to you, we just knew it was like a feeling. We just had that security knowing that like you were going to handle everything and we didn't have to worry about it. So I feel like it's just kind of a feeling. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What a compliment.
Yeah. I know. It definitely makes me feel good. Like I'm just like, cause that's like my biggest goal. It's like, I want to make this as stress-free on my couples as possible. And like, even when I have like the parents that are super heavily involved, like I want to make it stress-free on them because I want them to be able to be in the moment
and to
not
enjoy
have to worry about anything. Yeah. Don't worry about like what the tables are going to look like. I've got that covered. I want you to just be in the moment and just enjoy every bit of your day because the day goes by so fast. It goes so fast. So that's where I want all of my couples and their parents to be very in the moment and not have to worry about a thing. So that's where me and my staff, we just kind of go above and beyond and really just make sure that we're not only handling like the logistics side of things and making sure everything's set up and all the vendors are taken care of and they're on track and they're staying on schedule and they're taking care of their setup, but we are also catering and really taking care of bride and groom and just really making sure, again, that they're able to be in that moment and just not have to worry about a thing. Like, you need help lifting up your dress to go into the bathroom, I'm your girl. Like, I will help you and I will take care of it. You need to get your shoes strapped on and nobody's there to help you. I have put so many shoes on bride. So, yeah, we take care of them we wait on them hand and foot. We want to make sure that they're fully catered to, because again, the day goes by so fast, and I just want them to enjoy it. I don't want them to have to worry about a thing. Yeah. And that's where every day after every single wedding, I walk away and I feel so good, because I know that I gave it my all. My team gave it our all. And, you know, not only the bride and groom, but like family members, the parents, the, you know, siblings, the bridal party, everybody's just so happy with what we've given them. And they were just like, wow, that was just like such an easy day. And I'm like, okay, yes, we did it.
Success.
Yeah. Every wedding, I'm like, yes, it's a success.
Yeah. Because it's not just, I could see how, especially from your side of things, logistically, it could be very cut and dry. Because you're trying to hit the timeline. So, I mean, obviously things move and things shift, but you're trying to make sure everything happens for them on the day of, and it could get very, I'm not going to say, maybe militant is like the wrong word, but just, do you get what I'm saying? Like, it could get very strict. So having the side of remembering that it's also a very emotional day, and it's also very heartfelt and beautiful, and that you have to be a part of all of those moments too, is the beauty of being a good planner.
Oh, totally. I mean, I cry at every single wedding. Like every single wedding, the ceremony, I'm usually like tearing up a little bit, like, oh my God. And then even like, okay, so I'm a mom of 2 boys. So at the mother-son dance, I'm always like, oh, I have to do this twice. Like, this is going to be so hard to do. But I, you know, in some of the speeches, they really get me. I'm like, wow, this is really moving. But I do cry because I am very emotionally connected to every single wedding. And I love what I do. So I really invest my whole self into it. And I take a lot of pride in it. And so, yeah, some of those get me.
I totally get it. Since we had our daughter, the father-daughter dance, pretty much every time.
Every time.
Or if the dad starts crying during his speech, I'm like, oh gosh, I can't.
Yeah. Gets me every time. I'm just like, oh, I have to do this twice.
I have a question for you about venues, because I've noticed with the weddings that we've done, and then just a lot of following you on Instagram and noticing you tend to work at similar venues a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Do you have your favorites? What are your favorites?
Oh, I have a lot of favorites. I would say my ultimate favorite is La Ventura Event Center in San Clemente. That is definitely my favorite venue. Not only is it just like beautiful, it's such a great like venue that you can really like create your own space and really just make it your own. I feel like it's just such a blank canvas that you can just do so much with it. And I love the layout. But I would say my favorite thing about that venue is the staff and the owners. So the owners are incredible to work with. It's a family-owned business or venue. So it is family owned, and they're just very well-rounded people and just such a joy to work with every time, whether I'm doing a final walkthrough or a venue tour with a potential client, or I'm there the day of, or I'm doing rehearsal, whatever it is, they're always just very consistent in the way that they treat all of their vendors. And they just, I don't know, they're just amazing people. And then their staff is impeccable. Like, they are on it. Like, they have trained their staff so well, and they do such an incredible job. I truly do enjoy working there. Whenever I know I have a wedding at La Ventura, I know that it's going to be a great day. Like, it's going to be a very smooth sailing day. Everything's going to run great. We're all going to be on the same page. Luckily, I do a lot of weddings there. Like, I think last year I did 16 weddings there. Wow. This year, I think I have like 12 weddings there. Yeah. So I do a lot of weddings there every single year. And so I obviously know their staff very well. I know the managers, I know the owners. So every time that I'm there, I feel like the communication is there. I fall back on the communication. I think that's such a huge part of it, especially for the day of. So that's where I feel like, okay, we're all going to be on the same page. We're all going to work well together. And then also their chef, Mariah. Whoop, whoop. I'm like his biggest fan. He is literally incredible. His food is so good. I mean, you've had their vendor meals. It is really good. It's so good. So I always just compliment him so much because his food is just, it's not your typical wedding food. It's so good. So that's also like a great selling point for any of my clients that I do show them that venue. their food is incredible. So I love La Ventura. I do a lot at the Richard Nixon Library as well. I am on both of those preferred vendor lists. So I do a lot of work there. And I do a lot of work with Jay's Catering too. I am on their exclusive vendor list, which they did roll out. And they are kind of moving forward in that direction of having an exclusive vendor list for all of their different venues, which they do have a lot. So I do a lot there with them at all of their different venues, Hangar 21, Grand Yameno, all the Estate on 2nd, Sarah Plaza. I do a lot with them. And then 24 Carats, I do a lot with them too.
24 Carats, is that a venue?
That is a catering company, but they also do have a lot of venues. So they do like Ole Hansen Beach Club in San Clemente. They do Franciscan Gardens, Rancho Las Lomas. So I do a lot of all those venues too. Yeah. So I would say those are like the main ones that I do work at. And then, I mean, there's definitely different ones in between, but yeah, I do a lot with all of those different caterers, which own their own venues, and then different venues. Yeah.
I didn't know that caterers owned their own venues.
Yeah. Jay's Catering is huge and 24 Carats is huge. So, yeah.
What are some horror stories that you've experienced? I know you have a lot of them. That's why I want to ask.
Oh, where to even start? I'd say like on the vendor side, just having like, it's always never fun when like the vendors are friends of the bride and groom. I feel like that just does not mix well.
Really?
Because those are usually the vendors that they're like having some drinks and they're just like very chill and very relaxed and they're not really focused on like, okay, we have a timeline, we have a job, we have to do this, this, and this. They're just kind of chilling. They're hanging out and they're not really worried about that stuff. They're mingling with friends and that they know at the event, that sort of thing. So when there's friends of the bride and groom, then I find that like the vendor side, if they're vendors, friends with the bride and groom or friends with like the parents, I find that it doesn't really flow very well, which that's very frustrating on my end because I take a lot of pride in making sure that things flow nicely and everybody's on the same page. So I take a lot of pride in that the day of. So when that doesn't happen, I get very like, oh man, like we got to get back on schedule. And so I really just try to like reel it back in and bring it back together.
Do you have any specific stories? You've seen a lot of weddings.
I'm like,
so
I've like seen
flipping
so
back
many. I'm like trying to go through it, like turning the page. I mean, finding like things left behind that you're like, why is this left behind? Like a bra or underwear. I'm like, why is this left behind? Or nothing like crazy that's just been like, you know, I've had like people taken away in an ambulance or I've had,
that's scary.
which that's never fun. That's very serious. And it's like, okay, we got to like figure all this out. So that's like never fun to deal with, but nothing like, I don't know. I feel like there's such a large variety of things. Like finding people doing it in a bridal suite or anything.
Wait, did that actually happen?
Oh my God, that's happened like twice. Yes. One time my assistant went up into the bridal suite to go get some of our decor boxes so we could start packing things up. And there was people doing it up. It was a bridesmaid and her date. They were doing it up in the bridal suite. And so she felt so uncomfortable. I was like, get down. And we're on radio with each other.
Did they notice her walk in?
No, they had no shame. No shame.
Oh my gosh.
Or we had at another wedding. It was like my parents' age, which I was like, whoa. They went behind the curtain where like the extra storage was at the venue and they were doing it in there. So no shame.
Wow.
And she was the one that we later found her underwear at her table, which was really gross. Yeah.
Okay. So that's kind of what you meant by like bras and underwear is left behind?
Yes. Yeah. Because like, oh, how'd that happen?
My thought was like, oh, it was just in the bridal suite because bridesmaids will change. And
no, like I'm talking at the reception table, like on the chair, we found the underwear. And it's like, oh, no.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and that was like somebody that was like the age of my mom. And I'm like, oh, okay. Get it, girl.
Yeah, it sounds like they had a fun evening.
Yeah, they had a good night.
At the very least.
You're living it large, so get after it.
That's a first. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say like any crazy horror stories. I mean, I have every wedding's so different, but I mean, I did have a fire that took place like right before the ceremony. A fire broke out across the street, and that was interesting.
That's wild.
It was just like, oh my gosh, like this whole garage was on fire. And, like 10 fire trucks pulled up, and we were telling the bride, "Don't worry, it's all tomorrow."
Literally putting out fires on the day of the wedding.
It'll be fine. It's gonna be good. So, but other than that, I mean, usually we just kind of handle it and take it with a grain of salt, and we just handle whatever happens. Whatever arises, we handle it. Usually the bride and groom have no idea it's even happening because we just take care of it. Yeah. Yeah.
That's the best way to do it. Yeah. Any last tips or tricks that you would give to people who just got engaged, who are thinking of doing a planner or coordinator?
You don't underestimate the value of a wedding coordinator. I feel like a lot of my couples don't realize all that we do, especially the day of. Like, they don't realize how much we do until the end of the night or the next day. And then they're texting me like, oh my gosh, like, I cannot believe everything that you took care of. So a lot of people are just like, gosh, why do I have to hire a wedding coordinator?
Yeah.
Do it. You want to do it. You want to hire one. It will just make your day so much easier. It'll make your life a lot easier. I used to do like just day of, where I would offer just day of, and now I don't even do that anymore because I do month of now. And that's where I come in the 6 weeks prior to your wedding. And that's just so that I could be well-rounded with your entire wedding, all the details surrounding your wedding. And then that way, the day of, I can truly execute and really bring it to life for you. I want to make it everything and more for you. Everything that you envisioned. I want to make it, everything that you've dreamt of. I want it to all be perfect for you. And in order to do that, that's where we do come in that time frame before, and I gather all necessary details to make sure that the day of, I'm really truly able to execute your vision, everything that you planned out. I'm really able to bring it to life for you. But never underestimate the value of a wedding coordinator or a planner. There is so much that goes into planning a wedding. You're spending so much money. Yeah. There's so many details. There's so many different elements that are brought in, and especially the day of portion. It's so important. I feel like there's just so much that we do. Like, I feel like even in my consultations, like, I can't even list all the things that I do because I just do them. And so, yeah, never underestimate the value of a wedding planner or a coordinator, because it can definitely be very helpful to you and make your life a lot easier, for sure.
Yeah. I would second that.
Yeah. It's so crazy, like, how important, especially just a day of, month of coordinator is. You want to not worry. You want to be able to enjoy the day. You don't want to have to worry about, like, are the tables set up the way I wanted them? Or is the welcome sign out? Is the ceremony site set up the way I wanted it and envisioned it to be? Are the vendors all taking care of their setup? You want to make sure that you have a key point person that's taking care of all of that for you. And then that's where we do come in and we take care of all of that for you. And you don't have to worry. Like, never have to worry. And I'm constantly just checking on my couples, like, how you doing? What do you need? Do you need anything? What do you need? Whatever they need, we take care of it for them. And that's where we still really focus heavily on that catering side to them, is we want to make sure that they feel good, they're in the moment, they're having fun, but we're also taking care of, like, the logistics side of things. Yeah.
One of the hardest things for me to see as, like, a photographer or being on the videographer side with Joe is if couples are like, did this happen? Did this happen? Did this happen? And they're asking their circle of, bridesmaids. And because what they haven't done is had a coordinator to put all of those pieces together at the very end and handle it on the day of. Yeah. And so you can see the stress. And in my mind, I'm like, I don't want you to worry about that on the day of your wedding.
Yeah.
You know, and part of me is like, part of me wants to go do it for them too.
Totally.
You know?
But you're like, I have this other job that I have to do.
Yeah.
I mean, you definitely don't underestimate the value of that, because having that person as that go-to person, and that's why I always have an assistant with me the day of, because if they're kind of running the setup side, I can go and cater to the bride and groom, and I can make sure that they are taken care of. And, if I need to blot their makeup because maybe they were crying at a first look with their dad and I need to kind of help fix their makeup, then I'm taking care of that. If I need to fluff their train to get that shot right for the photographers and help the photographers out, then I'm going to do that for them. So again, just really focused on that catering side and also taking care of things. And that's why I always make sure there's two of us, because I want to make sure all grounds are covered and make sure that everybody's good. And yeah.
What can people expect to pay for a planner or a coordinator we're in Southern California, so just in this area?
Yeah, so I kind of feel like it is a range based off of your coordinator's expertise and that sort of things. But I feel like in all of the wedding industry, every vendor is like a range of price point. But I feel like the average cost of like a coordinator for like day of, month of, you're looking at anywhere from like $2,000 or about like $1,800 to about $2,500. Just kind of depending on like how in advance are they coming in? Are they just doing that day of? There are some coordinators that do offer day of, and then there are a lot that just offer like the month of. So I feel like if you are looking for just a day of, you're looking at anywhere from like $1,500 to $1,800. And then if you are looking for like a month of coordination from a coordinator, then you're looking at anywhere from like, I'd say maybe $2,000 to $3,000. Right now in my career, I am charging for a month of coordination $2,000. And that's again where we come in the 6 weeks prior to your wedding. And then we're handling the 6 weeks prior, all of that time frame, and then we are handling the rehearsal and the day of portion as well. And then the day of, you do get an assistant and myself. And then for planning, just depending if you're wanting like full planning service or partial planning service, I'd say it'd range anywhere from like $4,000 to about like $8,000 or $9,000. Again, just kind of depending on kind of where that person is in their career. But for me, for partial planning, so I charge $4,000. And then with full planning, I charge $5,500.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I range right now. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you guys so much for watching today, and thank you, Lynette, for coming and chatting with us in the studio.
Thank you so much for having me. And if you guys would like to find me, you can find me on Instagram, Blissful Moments by Lynette, or you can find me at my website, blissfulmomentslp.com. I'm also listed on Wedding Wire, The Knot, and Zola. And make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel and hit the notification button so that you guys can get notifications of when we post our next episode.
And if you guys have any questions for me or for Lynette, you can leave them in the comment section down below, and we'll see you next time. Bye.